I know you mentioned, in the PvP arena, there's going to be a matchmaking system, likely, if nothing else, an underlying one that will pitch you against players of your equal skill or gear level. And I know you also mentioned they won't be a number one team. Does that go to say that there's no ranking whatsoever? There are no points attached to your PvP teams? And with that said, if there are points attached to PvP teams, can we have multiple teams? So if I want to play with my friends who maybe are terrible, but I have my hardcore team, I can do both of those things without affecting the other.
There is no ranking.
There's no ranking whatsoever.
There's an invisible ranking that we use for matchmaking, and it's done on a per player basis. And then when we have a team, we kind of combine their rank together in a super smart way.
Yeah.
The guy who does that's wicked smart, way smarter than me. So, he works all that out. But we don't have like I'm a 2200 rated player, and therefore I'm better than you as a 2100 rated player. What we do is what we're focusing on is more of a progression-based system, which is, I am level 20 PvPer, which means I've played a lot of PvP.
And can we expect like a win-loss ratio, anything along those lines?
Currently, we don't even do a win-loss ratio.
Okay.
We might do a number of wins, but probably not a number of losses.
Like StarCraft does
even
now,
even
below
in StarCraft,
Masters.
we found that the number of wins actually feels a lot better than showing actual win-loss ratio, because you don't, that's why people want to recycle accounts in StarCraft 2, because they don't want those losses to be shown. So the solution was, well, how about we just don't show them? But no, we really want to focus it more casual. The leveling system there, it rewards playing, it rewards winning slightly faster than losing. So, but if you go on and lose it up for 100 hours, then you'll probably be able to get just as far in the system as somebody who wins all the time.
Is there anything you can reveal in terms of rewards to the system, be it vanity items, or do you guys have plans for anything?
Right now, it's focused primarily on achievements. So there's a whole array of PvP-oriented achievements and titles. And then part of the banner, the crest of the banner, is actually completely PvP dedicated.
Cool.
So as you get to higher and higher ranks, then it levels that up.
Also on the topic of PvP, though,
and then you're next again. You've been wanting a question for a while.
Hardcore. You had mentioned that you kind of changed it to a team deathmatch, and that you want people to respawn and do the total kills. Is this still, when you die that first time, you're dead forever?
That's what I want to do. There's a lot of pushback on the team. I announced that at BlizzCon, and the community, I think, at BlizzCon, they were all for it. We've gotten a little bit more mixed results outside of BlizzCon. It's pretty easy for me to get a crowd worked up, though.
I saw a blue post on it, which is why I'm asking that it's kind of in flux.
The PvP strike team is that is focused on that area. They're pretty nervous about their basic feeling is if that's what happens, then hardcore characters just won't PvP.
There'll be no community after a few hours, basically. I think that's the mentality.
But then there was hardcore dueling in D2. So we may change that. We may allow players who are hardcore to play PvP and not die. That being said, I still want a way for hardcore characters to duel. If we don't do it at ship, I'm going to push for us to figure out a way to do it. Even if it's basically just some place you can go in the world where you are flagged for PvP. Like even if it's that simple, I still feel like it's a tiny community, but it's still a community that I'd like to support. Like, because those are crazy. I part of me's like, I love you crazy.
Well, just like if in team deathmatch you can respawn as many times in that specific match within the winning team. They're the winning team. But the losing team, they just die.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. So we'll see.
All right.
Feel free to hold polls and let us know, what the community feels, because I'd be curious.
Do we currently have any systems in place besides a deathmatch for the PvP arena? I've heard mentions of obviously things like capture the flag may be difficult, but like a horde mode, as example, and like Gears of War, just constant streams of enemies, or maybe even player versus player with monsters in the arena as well.
We've definitely talked about some other modes, not at ship, but who knows in the future. And but I really like the idea of a mode that actually involves monsters and players of some kind. And we've played around with modes like that, and biggest issue was that we ran into is that they didn't feel like Diablo because of the way we were doing. But I think that's just the design we had. I think there's a way to do it where it would feel like Diablo, and we could have that. It's worth noting, though, as long as we're talking about PvP, how some of how the PvP mode has changed a little bit. One of the major ways is we went a little bit away from. Well, we went away from the last man standing style of arena play. As we've said frequently, the point of the PvP game is to be fairly casual and fun. What we found was that I die and I'm out for the round and I have to wait for the round to finish is really much more of hardcore arena esport type of model. And now we tried out a few other things, and the one that kind of latched that everyone really liked the most was more the team deathmatch model, where when you die, you respawn within a few seconds and you can jump back into the fight. And we found that to be, one, it's a lot more approachable. So we get people in who don't even like PvP or who are not very good, and they'll actually have a great time because they feel like they have a chance to stay in the fight, that death doesn't feel like as big a penalty, and that they can kind of also learn what the other team is, how they work, and what they're using, and then also figure out how, we see these awesome swings in the fights where one side will start off really strong and the other side will figure them out and then come back, and then this side will figure out what they're doing and come back, and so you get a lot more interesting dynamics that's a little bit more approachable. So it feels very similar because it's still an arena and you're all, it's still a team-based game, but it feels a little bit more casual, which is what we want.
What's the average timer on that?
I think it's about 10 minutes.
Oh wow, that's a big difference from what was showcased at BlizzCon, like 1-2 minute matches.
Yeah.
So we are hoping that this BlizzCon that we'll be able to have people play that again, so they can see kind of how it's different. I think ultimately the reaction will be pretty positive, because one of the things we also notice is you don't get quite the shutouts that you could get in the arena version. You can still get them, and that's something we're talking about. Like, do we want to do any kind of rubber banding or anything like that? Mostly for starter players, because once you get good skill matching, then it doesn't matter that much anymore. You don't need to rubber band people because they're close in skill. But when you get this big disparity, rubber banding can be awesome because it can kind of make the match more fair, but it can also be terrible because it makes the winners feel like they need to win. So now I'm rambling. But hopefully we'll be able to show PvP this year at BlizzCon, so people can try that system out.
I've heard a lot of people kind of boast about the idea of a wagering system in PvP. Any thought put into that at all? Betting on the victor?
Gambling.
Apparently Micah is all for it.
Since you now have real money with the auction.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not betting real money on the victor.
Well, if there was ever a way that we could say, how can we make this an esport? It's like, which is exactly what we don't want to do. No, not really.
No.
And that's kind of the reason why is anything that even remotely points it toward. We know people are going to want to turn it into an esport. We know that. But it's not going to be from any encouragement from us. The big reason being that we are never going to allow, at least over my dead body, the PvP game to wag the tail on game balance. And so we want the PvE game to rule it. Even the amount that PvP can alter the PvE game in WoW is unacceptable to us. Whenever we run into a case of, this would be really awesome for PvE, and then the PvP guy goes, that kind of screws PvP. The answer is always, shut up, PvP guy. It's awesome in PvE, so that's what we're doing.
I mean, why can't you just add features that are cool just because they're cool? And if in essence it helps esports, then it helps esports. I mean, why would you go out of your way to not make the game an esport?
Because when you make the game an esport, You have to balance it like an esport.
Why can't you just say, sorry, I'm not balancing it. These are cool features that should be in the game just because they're cool.
Because it confuses the audience. You know, you can't on the one hand give people an esport setup and then go, but it's not an esport. If you're going to commit to that, you kind of have to commit to it and say, you know what, it's not an esport. We're not going to go and do that high level of feature set. It's also one of those things where when you know, I know it seems like from the outside that we have endless time and budget. And the truth is, we don't. The truth is, we work our butts off to get the game out, and we make all kinds of choices. And you know, adding feature set like that to make the game more like an esport when it's not a goal for us, when we could be spending those dollars on making the PvP game better or making the PvE game better, we're going to spend those dollars elsewhere.
Understandable.
I think you have time for like one more.
Well, since we're on PvP, I just wanted to kind of ask something based on that. I know you guys have mentioned that some skills will be retooled for PvP. Will that be like through diminishing returns? Will the skill look entirely different at all?
What we have is within the data of the skill, we have these things called snows, which are basically like a little containment of data. And you can open up, say, the magic missile snow and look at everything that magic missile does. And then we have this other column that is PvP. And basically, it can take any of the attributes that we have for the regular skill and input a different value for it. So these, we primarily use it to, say, change how...
Stun.
Yeah, how long a stun lasts, or we don't use diminishing returns, and we're hoping not to because it's not very obvious or consistent for the player. Yeah, cooldowns can change. Damage could change, although we try not to mess with those because that's really tricky. But yeah, cooldowns, crowd control durations, those are the big things that tend to change. Those are the ones that tend to be the most kind of game breaking is cooldowns and crowd control durations.